So, ESPN's Football Power Index released its 2020 NFL season projections earlier this week, and I want to look specifically at the chances for each team to make the Super Bowl this year because I think there's a lot of interesting picks here based on this index. So as you can see here, these are the top 10. By the way, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Mike Bachman. It's great to see you again. And looking at this top 10, there are a lot of, as I said, interesting choices here. This power index has gotten the past two seasons correct. They picked the Patriots to win in the 2019 Super Bowl. They picked the Kansas City Chiefs to win in last year's Super Bowl. And they have the defending Super Bowl champions right here as having the best chance to make the Super Bowl this year. I think right here you have the top four teams in the NFL for sure. The Chiefs, Ravens, Niners, and Saints. I don't think there's any question that they are the top four teams in the NFL and the top two teams in their conference respectively. Now, you look at the Chiefs and the Ravens, I do think that there is a strong argument that you could put the Ravens ahead of the Chiefs as far as the chances to make the Super Bowl. And I'll tell you why. I understand that Patrick Mahomes is the best player in the NFL right now, but you look at the rosters. I do think that the Ravens have a more well-rounded roster than the Chiefs do. Lamar Jackson came out of nowhere last year, shocked the NFL, had an MVP caliber season. I mean, there's no denying his talent. I think that he'll only take steps further into 2020. And I look at their draft class in rounding out this roster even more so, drafting Patrick Queen in the first round, J.K. Dobbins in the second round. I think that those two picks, they're going to make immediate impacts on the team. Patrick Queen is a tackling machine out of LSU, and I thought that the Seahawks totally missed out in drafting Jordan Brooks instead of Patrick Queen. Patrick Queen basically fell into the Ravens' laps at that point. And as a Steelers fan, I hate the Ravens, but you got to be realistic about these things, and they drafted one hell of a stud. That defense is going to wreak havoc for a lot of teams. Matthew Judon signed his franchise tender today. They have Earl Thomas. They brought in Calais Campbell from free agency. So I think that they boosted this team even more so than it already was. I think this offense is electric. Lamar Jackson is a beast, and I think that you can put the Ravens ahead of the Chiefs in this one. Patrick Mahomes, yes, is absolutely insane. He makes plays like nobody else does. Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, great 1-2 punch at wide receiver. Their defense, there are some holes. They let up a lot of points, and that's what I think it comes down to. As great as their offense is, there are a lot of great teams in the NFL this year. I just think that the Ravens all around have a better team at this moment. And then you look at the NFC, and I think that there's another strong argument that you can value the Saints over the 49ers in this case. The 49ers, yes, they made the Super Bowl last year. They should have won that Super Bowl, but Kyle Shanahan decided to fall asleep in the second half, much like he did when he was with Atlanta back in the 2016 Super Bowl it was. Jimmy Garoppolo is who he is. He'll win you some games. He'll lose you some games. That's just how he is, in my opinion. They arguably have the best defense in the NFL. They drafted Javon Kinlaw to replace DeForest Buckner, who is now an Indianapolis Colt. They have Eric Armstead, Nick Bosa on the outside, going after the quarterback. So I think that this defense is well-rounded, and I think that they will wreak havoc for quarterbacks and offensive lines next year for sure. But you look at the Saints now, I think that the Saints are the best team in the NFC. You bring back Drew Brees, who with a bum hand last year showed that he still can play at a high level when protected. Alvin Kamara, I think, is going to have a great season this year coming out of the backfield. Michael Thomas, who's arguably the best wide receiver on the outside. You bring in Emmanuel Sanders from free agency, who, yes, he is on the other side of 30 years old, but still extremely quick and extremely productive. And the Saints have had heartbreak over the past couple of years in the playoffs. The Minneapolis Miracle, the blown PI call with Nickel Roby-Coleman against the Rams. So I think that the Saints are looking for that redemption still. Drew Brees has, I think, realistically one more year to do it, even though he's on a 2-year deal. So I think this is the year for the New Orleans Saints. I would value them over the San Francisco 49ers in this case. And then at 5 and 6, it gets a lot more interesting because you have the Cowboys and the Eagles. Now, I do think that the Cowboys will win the NFC East. I think that they're a better team than the Philadelphia Eagles. I know a lot of people are high on Philadelphia, and I'll get to why I don't believe in them in just a second. But to say that the Cowboys and the Eagles have a better chance of making the Super Bowl than the Seahawks and the Bucks do is laughable. The Cowboys are in a particular spot because They are in this contract dispute with Dak Prescott. The longer they wait to pull the trigger, I think the more expensive Dak is going to get. Patrick Mahomes is going to get the largest deal in NFL history next year. If Dak Prescott plays under the franchise tag this year, he's going to get even more expensive, probably to the point where the Cowboys won't have the cap to sign him. But if you want to hear more about that, I did an interview with talent statistician Russ DeLynn last week. Definitely check that interview out. It's up on my channel if you haven't already. One of the best offensive lines. They have a top 3 running back in Ezekiel Elliott, and then you have Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and then the fact that CeeDee Lamb falls into your lap in the draft. I mean, that offense can score a lot of points next year. And then obviously their defense underperformed last year. That was, I think, the reason why they lost so many games last year. I don't think it was Dak Prescott, but they lost Byron Jones in the offseason. They drafted Trevon Diggs out of Alabama, who basically fell into their lap once again. The Cowboys, I think, had one of the best drafts this year. They get Aldon Smith, who, yes, has not played a snap since 2015, but they get a speed rusher in him to go next to DeMarcus Lawrence on the other side. And then you have playmakers like Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch, young guys on this defense that I think can really bounce back this year. So I expect the Cowboys to make the playoffs, but to have them as having the 5th best chance to make the Super Bowl this year, I think is ridiculous. This is a team that we expected to make the Super Bowl and make a deep, maybe if not the Super Bowl, but make a deep run in the playoffs the past 2 years. And they've come up short. Didn't make the playoffs last year, went 8-8. Jason Garrett's finally out. Mike McCarthy is finally in. And I think Mike McCarthy is a better coach than Jason Garrett is. So I expect the Cowboys to make many more strides going into 2020, but to value the Cowboys over the Seahawks, over the Bucks at this point, when we expect so much out of them, I just think is a bad move. And then you have the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I personally don't believe that the Eagles should even be in this top 10, and I'll tell you why. Carson Wentz is a great quarterback. He is. He put up great numbers last year playing all 16 games, but he gets injured. And you look at this team, it's not as well-rounded as the Dallas Cowboys. Their offense isn't as electric as the Cowboys' offense. And when you look at their schedule from last year, they should have been a much better team than a 9-7. Yes, they went on a 4-game winning streak to end the season, but that was against the New York Giants twice, the Redskins, and the Cowboys. You know, you lose to the Falcons, you lose to the Lions, you lose to the Dolphins. Those are games that you have to win if you are trying to establish yourself as a Super Bowl caliber team. You have to win those games. In looking at the schedule this year, I think they're going to be in a very similar spot. They open the season against the Redskins, and then they play the Rams and the Bengals. Those are games that you need to win. Get off to an early start there. But then you face the 49ers and the Steelers away, and then you have the Ravens at home. Those are 3 games against arguably the best defense in the league in the 49ers, arguably one of the best offenses in the league in the Ravens, and a Steelers team that's getting Big Ben back and also a top 7 defense. Now, obviously, not knowing how Big Ben's going to perform, they also get James Conner back, but you expect this Steelers team to perform much better than they did with Mason Rudolph or Duck Hodges under center. And then to end the season, you get the Browns, the Seahawks, the Packers, the Saints, the Cardinals, the Cowboys. I mean, come on. These are tough games for the Eagles next year, and I just don't see them being able to come out of all these games with wins. I think they'll be a 7-9, 8-8 team at best. And I think that having them in the top 10 in this index is, again, a little ridiculous. I do. I understand they have a good roster. Carson Wentz is a great quarterback, but I don't think that they'll be able to win games when it comes down to the wire. And then the Seahawks and the Bucks should be valued over the Cowboys and the Eagles. The Seahawks have a good roster. Russell Wilson is arguably the best athlete in the NFL. Chris Carson is a solid running back, even though he fumbled 6 times last year, so he's got to work on those numbers. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, they will produce at wide receiver. They brought in Greg Olsen. Greg Olsen's 35 years old and has been injured throughout his career. He is not going to make an impact on that offense at all, I don't think. And even on defense, you have Bobby Wagner, who's one of the best linebackers in the NFL, and then you bring in Quandre Diggs and Quentin Dunbar. I mean, I've said this before. When you look at this roster, there aren't many eye-popping individuals on this team outside of Russell Wilson and Bobby Wagner, I would say. Tyler Lockett's great, but he's not really an eye-popping wide receiver. Is he a top 10 wide receiver? I don't think so, no. But this Seahawks team will win you games. Russell Wilson is a beast and very underappreciated, I believe. And then you have the Tampa Bay Bucks sitting there at number 8. This is a team with Jameis Winston under center that won 7 games last year. It's hard to believe that Brady doesn't win at least 3 more games with this offense. He's finally got weapons on the outside. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. That is a scorching wide receiver combo. And even that defense is decent. Vita Vea on the inside. Jason Pierre-Paul had a great season last year. You got Shaq Barrett, who broke out last year. There are some good players all around on this team. Yes, Gronk's joining, but I've said before, I don't think he's going to make much of an impact on that offense in that system. The Bucks, I think, will be players come playoff time, especially with Tom Brady. I don't think that Brady's really going to fall off much. He has shown that he's still got it. I mean, I think that the Bucks are legit, and I don't think that you should sleep on them by any means. And then to have the Patriots at number 9 ranked over the Bills at that point, I mean, come on, dude. The Bills, I think, are going to run away with the AFC East next year. I think that they have the best roster. I think bringing in veteran guys on the defensive side of the ball was imperative, especially with a lot of young players that they're trying to look to develop. I think Josh Allen's going to further develop in year 3. Now with Stephon Diggs as his favorite target at wide receiver, Devin Singletary, will be able to see him at running back and how he develops. I don't think it's a contest. The Bills have a phenomenal defense. And if this offense develops a little bit more, they went 10-6 last year. This Bills team, come down the line, I think will be very solid once again. Are they a top 10 team in terms of chances to make the Super Bowl? I would say yes. I think they're right on that edge at 9 or 10. But having the Patriots in there, losing your best player in Tom Brady, that offense is garbage. I mean, Bill Belichick is a mastermind. He is the best coach that we have ever seen. And the Tom Brady-Belichick dynasty is probably the best dynasty that we have ever seen in the NFL. But rolling with Jarrett Stidham, I have watched Jarrett Stidham's preseason tape. He has got a great arm. He's poised in the pocket. He does not rush plays. He lets them develop. He's comfortable. But is he going to make an immediate impact in that offense? I just don't think so. I don't think the Patriots make the playoffs this year. I just think that there are too many holes on that offense, and they really didn't do much in the draft or in free agency to bolster that offense up. I would have the Cowboys closer to where the Bills are at around 9 and 10. I would have the Eagles out of here. I would have the Patriots out of here. And if I had to choose 2 more teams to join this list, it would probably have to be the Broncos and the Colts. Now, I think that the Broncos had the best offseason free agency draft out of any team. You bring in Melvin Gordon, you bring in Jarrell Casey, 2 great players on offense and defense. I think their running back situation right now is stacked, and their defense, adding Jarrell Casey definitely helps them out. And they also get AJ Boye from Jacksonville to go at cornerback. So I thought they brought in a lot of playmakers. And then in the draft, you get Jerry Jeudy, who will go alongside Cortland Sutton, who is a blossoming wide receiver. And then you draft Albert Okwuegbunam, who will go next to Noah Fant. That is a great 1-2 punch at tight end. And Drew Lock, you're giving Drew Lock all of the weapons that he needs. And then the Indianapolis Colts. I think that the Colts are legit as well. You have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. You bring in Phillip Rivers, who needs to play behind a stout offensive line. He was running for his life in San Diego, or Los Angeles rather. So bringing in Phillip Rivers, who I think will definitely be looking to bounce back after one of his worst seasons last year. And then you draft Jonathan Taylor, one of the best running backs in this draft. You bring in DeForest Buckner, one of the best D tackles in free agency. This Colts team, I think, will definitely be a contender coming out of the AFC South. I think they win the division, and I think that they too should not be slept on, because if Phillip Rivers is able to produce like he did 2 years ago with the Chargers, when he had one of his best seasons, give that guy protection. And I think that the Colts can also be a little bit of a shocker to a lot of people. So I would put them in replacing the Eagles, and the Patriots. But that's going to do it for me, so I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know in the comments what you guys make of this list. If you think that I am crazy for some of the teams that I think have a better chance of making the Super Bowl than others mentioned on this list, I'd love to hear what you guys think. But if you like this video, please smash that thumbs up button, turn on my notifications to be notified when videos are dropping, and definitely subscribe if you're new to this channel. We cover all things sports. I will say there is an emphasis on the NFL and NASCAR. I know that those are two completely different sides of the sports spectrum, but we do try to cover it all. And with the NFL season getting closer and closer, man, we're definitely going to have some more NFL content coming your way. But I do appreciate that support. My social links are in the description if you want to further connect over there. But that's going to do it for me. So hope you guys have a very nice weekend. I will see you very, very soon. And until next time, I'll be BACH.